I'm going to go ahead. All right, if everyone could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Yes, please remain standing. Sorry. Good exercise anyway for the Star Spangled Banner. Oh, I'm not on the internet. Thank you very much. That was great. All right. If I'm staring at my phone, it's because in us getting a more and more secure network, I am locked out of the Wi-Fi in the building, so my computer is not working. So I have it on my phone. So I'm not checking the scores, I promise you. I'm simply trying to get to my notes. Yes, all of us, apparently. Except Elisa, who's on the network, so everyone look. If she's doing something else, it's because, okay. First item of the agenda tonight is the approval of the board meeting minutes from October 16th, 2019. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from that? Dr. Eckers, second Dr. Luce. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Excellent. Thank you. The next four items on the agenda are informational items only that we received in advance. We have the budget appropriations report, the budget transfers over $5,000, the revenue report, cash receipts, school lunch, as well as the warrants, all for September 2019. Were there any questions or comments regarding those? Excellent. So the next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report from September 2019. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Ms. Baruch, second. Ms. Napolitano. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Excellent. The next item on the agenda are board member announcements. Are there any announcements that board members would like to have? Dr. Eckers?
Thank you, Mr. Melnick. First of all, just like to say hello to everybody. We haven't seen people in a while, and if this is your first board meeting back, then welcome. I just wanted to publicly thank everybody who made the veterans, the flags at the two high schools possible. I think that it's just a beautiful expression of people who served our country and ways in which our community has honored them. So thank you to everybody who participated in the Clark and East Meadow High School flag, the Field of Honor, and also to the Kiwanis Club for helping to make that happen. It was a nice partnership. And also I swung by Barnum Woods to their new pavers in front of the school, which is a fundraiser for their playground, and also was impressed with what the community did there to come out and support their school. So thank you very much to the community and everybody who made that happen, and I turn it back to you.
Hi, I just wanted to thank the East Meadow Fire Department, the Nassau County Police Department, and the Office of Emergency Management for the drill that they put together at East Meadow High School 2 Sundays ago. We were fortunate enough to be invited in to observe it, and it was really unbelievable, and we are very fortunate to know that they're only a phone call away to help us.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Benowitz? I'll come back to Melissa.
Hi, I just wanted to thank Dr. Casamento and Denise Michaelis and PTA Access. For those of you that weren't aware, or those of you that missed out, we had an amazing program regarding mental health. It was a mental health first aid. It was an 8-hour program. It was the whole day, and it was exhausting, but it was amazing. And I truly, truly urge all of you, hopefully we'll be able to do it again in the spring. Please sign up early because it goes very quickly. And I can honestly tell you, everyone that attended, I think there were about 35 of us or so, it was amazing. We all gained so much knowledge, and it was just a truly amazing day. And I thank you again, Dr. Casamento and Denise and the PTA Council for the Access workshop. Thank you.
No. Okay, thank you. Ms. Tell?
Come to Hofstra on Saturday at 8 o'clock, Clark semifinals for football. It's going to be a fun game and very cold.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other board member announcements? And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Card for superintendent's announcements.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome, everyone. At the last Board of Education meeting, I shared with the board and the community that we are in the midst of developing a district-wide strategic plan. The first phase of the plan's development involves the collection of data from our community using a survey. The survey was delivered via ConnectEd to the community 2 weeks ago. Students were given the opportunity to participate in the survey as well. To date, we have received well over 2,700 responses, which is a wonderful response rate, so thank you. On Tuesday, November 5th, Dr. Casamento, along with our district directors, chairs, and principals, developed a host of offerings for professional development for our second Superintendent's Conference Day. Examples of successful sessions included renowned literacy speaker Ralph Fletcher from the New York State Social Studies curriculum writer Greg Alquist, American Council of Teachers, a foreign language presenter Leah Garner Kennedy, and Pernell Rip, who teaches and speaks about inquiry in the English classroom. We had 5 teachers present at the Balanced Mind Conference for music and art teachers. And Debbie Caputo, once again, a health counselor, spoke to the guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists, physical education, and health teachers about suicide prevention and mental health well-being and warning signs. The responses from our teachers were overwhelmingly positive. Many indicated that it was one of the best superintendent's conference day in a while. We are always proud to celebrate our students and staff, and I would like to take a moment to congratulate a few of them on some of their accomplishments. Congratulations to the East Meadow High School students Ella Foster, Leslie Villaforte, and Zach Van Houten on qualifying to compete at the New York State Cross Country Championships. Congratulations to East Meadow High School student Chelsea Mayo, who qualified to compete in the New York State Championship in the 100-meter breaststroke and individual medley. And congratulations to the W.T. Clark High School football team, who, as Mrs. Tell indicated, will be playing in the Conference 4 semifinals on Saturday, November 16th at 8:30 at Hofstra against Cold Spring Harbor High School. A special thank you to Mr. Christopher Kraus, an ELA teacher at Woodland Middle School, who always works to support literacy initiatives. He showcases new books for staff and students, invites colleagues into his class to share ideas about best practices in reading, and leads book clubs for staff. He's involved in the East Meadow Project Lit chapter, and Chris works collaboratively with the PTA to bring book fairs to Woodland. As a reminder, our next Board of Education meeting will be on Wednesday, December 4th, and our annual holiday meeting will take place at East Meadow High School on Wednesday, December 18th at 7 p.m. We hope to see you all there. And now it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you, for the first time, our PTA Council President, Mrs. Veronica Nicastro.
Well, I've been hanging around here for 18 years, so I don't feel too new. Good evening, Mr. Melnick, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Card, members of Central Administration, teachers, parents, and students. Thank you to our PTA units from Barnum Woods and Woodland for providing all our delicious refreshments tonight. I am excited and proud to update you on just a few of the East Meadow PTA accomplishments so far this year. On October the 23rd, it was our annual East Meadow Unity Day, our 7th. The national purpose of Unity Day is to raise awareness about bullying. Together, our East Meadow PTA and school district united to promote our theme of soaring to new heights. While each individual school continued their own unique Unity Day activities, all of our students and teachers signed their names on paper balloons, which were collected for this beautiful mural that we see here tonight. The art societies from each of our high schools together created this wonderful visual representation of our unity to enjoy for the rest of the year. Would the members of both of the art societies that are here tonight please stand? No one? All right, well, anyways, I still believe that they deserve a round of applause because this is a beautiful, beautiful mural. The next day, October the 24th, oh wait, I wanted to say one other thing about this. Likewise, together, as part of our Unity Day, our schools collected 1,000 pounds of food for Island Harvest, enough for 800 meals, and wore orange T-shirts to represent our unification against bullying. I would like to give a special thanks to Denise Michaelis, Donna Goldstein, the East Meadow PTA Council Liaison, Mr. Richard Howard, our District Director of Music and Art, Kelly Gelfer, and the Art Department Chairperson, Heather Anastasio. Unity Day was a wonderful, positive success in no small part due to their efforts. It was very well done. Now, on October the 24th, the East Meadow PTA Council partnered with SEMCO and the Nassau County Police Department to present the first in a series of programs entitled Our Children and Vaping. The special guest speaker was Police Officer Yolanda Turner, who was with the Nassau County Police Department's Office of Community Affairs. She provided us with vital information concerning the dangers of vaping as it relates to our children. Part 2 of this series will be this Monday, November the 18th at 7 p.m. at East Meadow High School in the Little Theater. We will have an expert panel presentation to be followed by a community question and answer session. Among the panelists will be Dr. Melody Prezada, who is the Chief Adolescent Pulmonologist at Winthrop University Hospital, as well as East Meadow's own Dr. Zazzo, along with a few other panelists. Although vaping was marketed as a safer alternative to smoking, it is now known that when our children vape, they inhale toxic aerosol chemicals that permanently decompose their lungs. I urge all of you to attend this very important program. On November 2nd, as Board of Med member Ms. Benowitz alluded to, PTA Council's Access Committee, in partnership with the East Meadow School District and the East Meadow Kiwanis, provided the community with the Youth Mental Aid First Health Kit. Excuse me. I would also like to add that this 8-hour course trained adults to provide initial help to young people experiencing problems such as depression, anxiety disorders, psychosis, and substance abuse disorders. Upon completion, our attendees became certified in youth mental health first aid. We received very positive feedback on this, and it is our intention, as Allison said, to provide this meaningful program again in the spring. A special thanks to Dr. Casamento, Denise Michaelis, and the entire PTA Council's Access Committee. Lastly, Council is presently collecting books and blankets to donate next month to the Nassau University Medical Center's pediatric units. Please consider this worthwhile act of kindness. Donations can be given to any PTA unit president. I leave you tonight with these two thoughts. First is a quote, "Individually we are drops, but together we are an ocean." And the second is my thought that I truly believe that one of this community's greatest strengths is our unity and purpose for our children. So this Thanksgiving, let's be thankful for each other and our community. Have a wonderful holiday, everyone.
Oh, yes, okay. Miss Bell. Okay. Now is time for our first of two public commentary sections, or sessions. This is for items that are on the agenda tonight. If there's anyone who would like to address the board regarding items that are on the agenda, we ask that you fill out a blue card to my right, and then you'll have the opportunity to speak to the board. There will be a second opportunity to speak to the board and address the board, which is the second commentary section, which is useful to come after the first. And that will be on any topics on which someone would like to address the board. Again, we do ask that in advance you fill out a blue card so that we can call you up when that time comes. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board regarding items that are on the agenda? Excellent. Then at this time, I'd like to invite up Ms. Gulford to introduce the next selection. Thank you. Ms. Gelford, I'm sorry. I can't read my writing.
For the Star Spangled Banner this evening, I would like to recognize the W.T. Clark High School Saxophone Quartet. So they were very wonderful. Thank you to them for coming this evening. And this evening, we have a selection for you from the East Meadow High School Brass Ensemble under the direction of Mr. Stephen Engel.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to invite up Ms. Detour for our next item on the agenda.
Good evening, Mr. Melnick, Board of Education members, Dr. Card, and cabinet members. I am honored tonight to acknowledge Coach Tim O'Malley and to present a certificate congratulating him on his most recent award. Coach O'Malley is a graduate of W.T. Clark High School. He has been an East Meadow School District physical education teacher for 27 years. He has been on the W.T. Clark High School football coaching staff since 1988. In 2018, he was named head coach of the team. When Coach O'Malley was a varsity assistant coach, he was awarded Nassau County Assistant Coach of the Year. In his first year as the varsity coach, he was named Conference Coach of the Year, and over the past 2 years, the team has made the playoffs. And we're on our way again, so come to Hofstra, 8:30 Saturday. When Coach O'Malley, in his first year as varsity coach conference, we're going to repeat that, sorry, Coach of the Year. And after the past 2 years, he has made the playoffs. He has 15-3 record thus far as head coach. In addition to his impressive dossier, he is caring, compassionate, and person. The athletes trust his leadership and know he always has their best interest at heart. On October 28, 2019, Coach Tim O'Malley was named the New York Jets High School Coach of the Week, presented by Gatorade. The school's football program will be awarded $2,000. Along with this award, Clark High School receives an automatic bid to compete in the 2020 New York Jets 11-on tournament. In addition, he is invited to watch the New York Jets play the Pittsburgh Steelers on December 22nd from a luxury suite at MetLife Stadium, where he will be presented with a certificate and an award ball. We all want to be you. The Coach of the Week award is given to a coach in the tri-state area who serves the best interests of the game through the teaching of sound football fundamentals, the motivation of young players to achieve, and the promotion of youth football by way of dedication to their community, their school, and their student athletes. It is with great pride that I present this certificate from the Board of Education and the East Meadow School District congratulating Coach Tim O'Malley as the recipient of the New York Jets High School Coach of the Week. Come on up, Coach O'Malley.
Ms. Detour, please don't go far. You are up again for a presentation regarding vaping.
Very good. Over the last several months, we've heard a lot in the media about some of the consequences of vaping. As Mrs. Nicastro pointed out, SEMCO and CASA did a presentation several weeks ago on vaping, and I thought it prudent for us to demonstrate to the parents and our Board of Education that we are not asleep at the wheel in terms of making sure our students are aware of the safety hazards of vaping. So tonight, we want to spend a few minutes presenting information on the scope and sequence of our vaping curriculum here in the East Meadow School District. So it gives me great pleasure to turn the program over to Mrs. Detour, who is our Director of Physical Education, Health, and Athletics.
Just so everyone can see it, just so much prettier that way. Okay. Once again, good evening, Mr. Melnick, Board of Education, Dr. Card, and cabinet members. Thank you for having us here tonight. 4 of our East Meadow health teachers will be presenting the philosophy and curriculum lessons currently being implemented in our schools that focus on educating our students about vaping. They've worked extremely hard on this presentation. It's a short one, so I'm going to hand it over to Lisa Melendez to start us off.
Tonight, we are here as a department to provide the Board of Education with an opportunity to see the proactive, preventative measures we are taking to address the current health concerns regarding vaping. East Meadows School District has a unique opportunity to provide our students with health education, starting in kindergarten through elementary, middle, and high school. This gives us the ability to build and scaffold the necessary skills and knowledge that our students need for primary prevention. Evidence-based practices show that the 7 essential health skills can significantly reduce student risk behaviors in all dimensions of health. Take a look. We are going to take a minute and talk about communication. Strong communication skills are important and beneficial regardless of a person's age. Therefore, when we start to implement lessons and activities at the elementary level, students will begin to develop and practice communication skills. And as a result, this will help them to become more effective communicators at such an important time in their lives. If students do not develop proper communication skills, they may find it difficult and possibly struggle with expressing their thoughts when faced with high-pressure situations such as being asked to vape. By creating the K-12 sequential health curriculum, our department introduces skills, builds upon those skills, and gradually introduces age-appropriate functional knowledge. My fellow colleagues will now present the sequence of skills and knowledge that we provide your children and our students when it comes to our current health concerns regarding vaping.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Pisanos, and I am one of the elementary health educators for our district. In our K-5 program, our focus is on supplying students with the skills that they need to make the right decisions in their future. In grades K-2, we begin with the health triangle, which represents the focal point throughout all the lessons. With an array of activities and books, emotions, empathy, communication skills, assertiveness, and coping skills are all taught. One of the books read is The Angry Shark and the Magic Fish. The angry shark wants to go to his friend's birthday party, but must first learn how to handle his emotions. Students will leave class with a booklet of magic fish, which represent all the ways that they can cope and handle what comes their way. Students also have a chance to look at who is in their own support system. In grades 3 through 4, the goal is to build upon the skills that are being taught in K-2. We begin with the health triangle, and students realize how their mental health, physical health, and social health are all equal. Students will learn and practice different refusal and communication skills. One way that coping skills are practiced is through a game of Jeopardy, where students will have a chance to act out, draw, or answer how they positively handle the stressors in their life. In grade 5, although we continue our focus on our skills as K-4, more factual information will be included on vaping. Students will continue to learn and practice good refusal and communication skills. They will learn the difference between unhealthy and healthy coping skills. One unhealthy way that people cope is by vaping. Students will be given different scenarios where they will need to figure out how they will handle each situation. Students will need to practice these skills that they have learned throughout all of the lessons. Throughout our elementary health lessons, literacy is incorporated through a variety of resources. An interdisciplinary approach combines our life skills with reading and comprehension. And now the middle school.
Good evening. My name is Cara Fiorello, and I'm one of the health educators at Woodland Middle School. As you can see from Melissa, we have been able to integrate a lot more health education into our K-5 curriculum. With that being said, 6th grade is the first year we really immerse our students in vape functional knowledge. We try to show them how the tobacco industry has transitioned into the vape industry. Our overall goal is to make our students knowledgeable consumers. Therefore, we start with the history of tobacco and analyze its progression into our newest health concern, vaping. We provide students with information on the ingredients found in tobacco cigarettes and how we are seeing similar chemicals in vape products. We also show them the strategies tobacco, vape, and vape industries are using to target our teens. Students research the harmful effects of tobacco cigarettes and predict the outcomes of long-term vape use. More importantly, we educate them how vape use is a costly habit that interferes with the developing adolescent brain. Lastly, many students have shown concern for family members using nicotine, so we discussed cessation strategies for nicotine stoppage. In one of our lessons, we asked students to look for those tricks we discussed advertisers use in both vape and cigarette tobacco advertisements. Those fun images, the fun flavorings, patterns and colors, and cool images. We discussed the implications these images and messages would have on teens and what we could do to prevent teen usage. Therefore, the students are asked to pose as anti-vape advertisers and use strategies to prevent teens from purchasing their vape products using the health functional knowledge that they've gained so far. Previously, we asked students to create anti-cigarette packs. Today, we are asking our students to create anti-vape product packs. We also try to integrate some literacy within our research, so we ask students to create spine poems on the effects of nicotine use on the respiratory system and how to prevent teens from using the Juul. In 7th grade, our students have a strong functional knowledge base, so we can focus on skills, the health skills we talked about in the beginning. First, we focus on goal setting, how setting goals for the future can prevent substance use and encourage us to resist the negative peer pressure to vape. We also talk about decision making. We break down the decision-making process and evaluate the outcomes of engaging in risky behaviors. We practice effective communication skills to help build confidence within our teens to resist peer pressure and safely express their wants and needs. We practice stress management techniques and show them ways to manage stress in a healthy way instead of looking to vaping. We also talk about how the casual use of drugs can lead to an addiction and how the social and mental emotional implications of that can play out. This is a quick little example of how we incorporate skills with vape functional knowledge. We ask our kids to take a health gamble, and with a dice, they kind of roll out and see how it plays out to see how vaping would affect not only their short-term goals, their long-term goals, their overall physical health, and the social consequences it can have on their life. In 8th grade, we put them to the test to gather knowledgeable information. We asked them to gather accurate and reliable information regarding vaping. We know their perception of use and safety is heavily influenced by the media sources like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We want them to understand that they can get valid information regarding vaping from reliable sources, and we want to make sure those sources are reliable. We then ask them to use that information that they found on their own to create an anti-vaping public service advertisement. In addition to our curriculum, we have also taken a district-wide approach to prevention with Red Ribbon Week. Red Ribbon Week encourages students to send a positive message of being drug-free. This year, one of our SAG clubs hung up anti-vape clouds around the school, alerting students in the middle school of the harmful effects of vaping. And now for the high school.
Good evening. My name is Kevin O'Hagan, and I'm a health educator at W.T. Clark High School. At this level, the first thing we're looking to accomplish is assess students' prior knowledge from the middle school and elementary school levels. We do this through assessment surveys where we can gather a baseline for each of our classes so we can discover what it is they know and what we need to expand on. One area we expand on is the science behind the devices themselves and the chemicals that they can create that can be harmful to our lungs. We also try and stay on top of the latest research. We recommend the cdc.gov as a really good resource for you guys to look at home if you'd like some further information. Some of the information we share with our students are the recent reports of lung damage and also death as a result of using these vape devices. Just this past weekend alone, Newsday had an article from the CDC showing the dangers of vitamin E and how it can impact our lungs in a negative way. Another area we focus on is pointing out the fact that while these e-cigarettes and vape pens don't contain some of the tar products that are produced from cigarettes and tobacco, they do contain a very powerful drug called nicotine. Nicotine is a very addictive chemical, especially on a teen's developing brain. Some critical thinking questions that we bring up in our classes include things like, will these vape devices reverse all the anti-tobacco work that's been done over the years? Will we have more future smokers as a result of being addicted to nicotine from these vape products? Will it be a gateway to other drugs, such as the fact that some vape pens contain THC, which is an active ingredient inside of marijuana? More recently, we've been talking about some recent law changes in New York State, and it's kind of ironic that we're here tonight, and today marks the day, November 13th, 2019, that New York State has a law going into effect stating that you must be 21 years of age in order to purchase these devices. We allow students to expand on this in the classroom with persuasive essays, where they can focus on their opinions on what they think might be a safe way to handle this. Should we allow vaping at all? Should it be banned completely? Students are also encouraged to reverse some of the marketing campaigns that are geared towards targeting them, and instead we have them point out some of the dangers of these devices and products in return. Students also work towards refusal skill building with different role plays, creating public service announcements where they can practice saying no to these different devices in social settings. Ultimately, we feel that the best way to combat this is with open and honest communication with our students. We need to be there and support them through their situations that they go through on a daily basis, and we encourage that in our classrooms. If you guys would like any more information, we do have pamphlets that are outside that you can pick up. I recommend the CDC as a good resource, and here's our contact information if anyone has any other questions. Thank you all for your evening.
Any questions from the board?
So, thank you very much. I believe as a district, we're very passionate about the health of our students. And I just saw recently that I believe there was the first lung transplant that happened from vaping. Weekly, Dr. Card sends us updates and interesting articles, and it's an interesting article that I was saving just for tonight. Across the nation, different school districts have addressed vaping, specifically in the middle school, in other ways other than suspension. They're finding suspension is not working, so they've come up with some creative ways to try to, get through to these kids. One of them is for them to attend a 4-hour Saturday class that highlights a lot of the information that you've shown us here today. Another option is to have the child sit down with a student, maybe an administrator or another adult, perhaps guidance, and have the student hear how their actions have impacted those individuals. And I would like to continue this discussion with the board because we have to be proactive. Listen, saying you're suspended, we're sending the kid home to do what? Watch TV and vape. We're not addressing the problem. So we need to come up with alternative solutions. And I applaud you on your very aggressive presentation and campaign, and we fully support you. Thank you very much.
Any other board member comments? No? Thank you all very much. We do appreciate it. Thank you. I'd now like to call up Gary Fromowitz of Kiwanis for our terrific kids.
Thank you, Mr. Melnick. Good evening. My name is Gary Fromowitz, and I am the immediate past president of East Meadow Kiwanis. And for those of you that are not familiar with Kiwanis, we are an international organization that has its roots on the local or club level. Our purpose is to improve the quality of life in our communities with a special emphasis on children. As such, among the many causes we support, we feed needy families during the holiday season, send children to our camp in upstate New York, and provide scholarships to high school seniors that have demonstrated a strong sense of community service. Once again, the focus on children. We support the Terrific Kids program. So what is a Terrific Kid? I'm certain your parents believe you're all terrific. However, in this program, students and teachers create reachable goals to be met during a specific time frame. Perhaps you want to improve behavior or attendance, schoolwork, or foster a more respectful peer-to-peer relationship. Accomplish the goals during that time frame, and voila, you're a terrific kid. And do you know that terrific is actually an acronym, where every letter in the word stands for another word to provide a deeper understanding of that word? And I'm going to share that with you tonight. The T is for thoughtful. The E is for enthusiastic. You have two R's, respectful and responsible. The first I is inclusive. The F is friendly. The second I is inquisitive. And C is capable. So congratulations, and thank you for coming tonight. You're all terrific.
To the side. Good evening. We'll start with the terrific kids from Clark Middle School. For the month of September, in grade 6, Joseph DeJesu, come forward. Also in grade 6, Shaw Ma. In grade 7, Abigail Cornell. And Ava Gianatelli. And in grade 8, I do not believe they're here tonight, but a round of applause, Kaylee Jones and Delaney Peters. For the month of October, congratulations, 6th grader Emily Mendoza. Saman Nemi. And in grade 7, Sabrina Lee. And Rihanna Wehrman. And in grade 8, Adriana Desamine. And John Zamboki. And finally, for the month of November, in grade 6, Lucas Chungada. In grade 7, Anthony Boyle. And Lauren Foley. And in grade 8, Anthony Daly. Leticia Freitas. And Christina Taylor. Okay, how about a big round of applause for the Clark Middle School terrific kids?
Gives me great pleasure to introduce the terrific kids from Woodland Middle School for the month of September, grade 6, Gwendolyn Densler. Good. Great. There you go, Gwendolyn. Okay. Michael Balaco. For grade 7, Olivia Scriva. And Judah Baruch. For grade 8, Javika Bajaj. And Arjun Sani. For the month of October, grade 6, Asima Abdullah. And Christian Galisa Ramirez. For grade 7, Sydney Mockhour. And also grade 7, Aaron Robbie Prasad. For grade 8, Dynasty Ramos. And Alejandro De Jesus. And for the month of November, grade 6, Kayla Lederer. And Adele Deljenin. Congratulations. For grade 7, Anna Kofid. And Tyler Mendez. And for grade 8 for the month of November, Mia Uller. and Nicholas Servo. Alejandro, is he here? De Jesus? No. Guess he's not. All right. Okay. Those are terrific kids from Woodland for the months of September, October, and November. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Hi, I'm not throwing anyone out. However, we do have more meeting to continue with. So you're welcome to stay for the meeting. We'd love you to stay for the meeting. But if you're not going to stay for the meeting, if you could please go outside the room so that we can move on with our agenda. Thank you.
You want to start talking, Joe?
Go ahead.
We get everything? We get a fish then an hour. You dropped it.
This is going to be you. Don't sit. I would now like to call up Dr. Pizzo to introduce the next item on the agenda, which is the external auditor's report. Dr. Pizzo?
Okay, you ready? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Melnick. I'd like to introduce Jill Sanders from Cullen and Danowski. This is our first year with our new firm, so we're excited to have Jill with us today. Thank you.
Good evening to the Board of Education, the administration, and the community. Thank you for inviting me here this evening to your Board of Education meeting. I'm here to present the results of the audit for June 30th, 2019. I believe some documents in draft were provided to you to review. And so I'd just like to talk about the process a little bit as far as what the external audit is and what we found during that particular process. So my role as your external auditor is to render an opinion on the financial statements. Do they fairly present the financial condition of the school district? The opinion that we're rendering is an unmodified opinion. It sounds like a bad thing, but it's really a good thing. It's the highest level of assurance that you get that the financial statements fairly present the condition of the school district in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. How we come to that conclusion through the audit process is by performing what's known as a risk assessment. We look at the internal control structure that the school district has in place, and the Board of Education and the community should know that there's a very good internal control structure in place. What is that? Checks and balances over the financial transactions of the district. Dr. Pizzo, Jennifer, and all the staff of the school district do a really good job with making sure that those controls are effectuated over all of the major financial transaction cycles. And so for us as the auditor, that's a good thing to see, especially when you have a school district as large as this school district with many different transactions that take place. So they do deserve a lot of credit for that. With respect to your budgeting, the budget is a good sound budget from the standpoint as far as what we see on an audit standpoint. With respect to the amount of additional revenue that you recognized over and above what you anticipated, a lot of it was in the state aid area. There's numbers that come to the school district. They're revised throughout the year. And then on the spending side of the budget, because the administration watches very closely, you did have some budgetary savings. And the thing that's interesting about the school district, the amount of money that you use to apply to the next year's budget is almost exactly what your extra revenue was over and above what you anticipated recognizing and your budgetary savings. So you did deploy it against the subsequent year's budget, which is a nice thing to do. Your unassigned fund balance, that's the emergency money or the emergency funds that you might need. And the real property tax law says you should have no more than 4%. You're 3.89%. So you're right where you need to be. You have some reserves. They're managed very prudently. They are appropriate for the expenditures that you have in your budget. We also give an opinion on the extra classroom activity funds, even though they're not under the control of the business office. State Education Department wants us to look at those transactions and the controls over them. And there are some good controls over those transactions. We actually interview the individuals who are responsible for handling those funds, and we do what's known as a walkthrough to see what those actual control procedures might be. And so there seems to be some tight controls in place there too. And then overall, there are some dedicated records for each club and activity that show us what's collected and dispersed, and we look at that on a sample basis as your external auditor. We have a communication for you, the Board of Education. There are journal entries attached to the communication. It's a letter, and there's a number of items that are addressed in the letter. The most important ones are that the audit was performed in accordance with the standards, so there's no deviation from the standards. We did not find anything problematic. The planned scope of the audit and the timing was as had been expected. We appreciate the opportunity. We met with so many staff people. First year's audit is always a challenge, because we're asking for a lot of documentation. We need to understand the policies that the Board of Education put forth. We need to understand the controls to support those policies, and then the procedures to support those policies. So we're talking to a number of individual people. We're mapping out that control structure, and it takes a long time, and we're asking for documentation continuously. So I appreciate all the documentation. We asked for something, it was forthcoming very quickly. You should know that as a Board of Education. And so the extra classroom report you have for review. The other letter that I mentioned to you has some journal entries that we proposed to the school district. During the audit cycle, especially this year, it's our first year, so we're a little bit delayed as far as when we would typically issue our report. We see things that we have additional information for to suggest transaction adjustments, okay? So, for example, the books are closed June 30th, and we're looking at subsequent cash receipts and subsequent bills that are paid, and we're going all the way out to our audit report date. So don't be alarmed by the number of transactions. They're not sizable. You have to put it in context of the total dollar amount. If they were sizable, there would be a comment in the management letter with respect to the accounting function, and there is no comment. Our management letter has no material weakness or significant deficiency comments, and just as a reminder, in case the previous auditor hadn't discussed it with you, this means there's a control structure break, okay? No check or balance over a financial transaction, or there's a control that's in place that's not working appropriately that could lead to fraud, defalcation, or misstatement of financial information. No such items. In our management letter, we give best practice suggestions in certain areas, so there's really nothing egregious there, just some things for the school district to consider. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right,
We
thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, if there's no further anything, I'd like to make, would someone like to make a motion to accept the external auditor's report? Dr. Luce, second. Dr. Eckers, any discussion? Further discussion? More discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Thank you very much, and thank you again. I'd next like to invite up Mr. Camarada to discuss the planned Phase 3 projects. Welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. Just going to get started here. Thank you to Dr. Card, the Board of Education, and cabinet members for affording me this opportunity to speak here tonight, as well as the community of East Meadow. I know it's very cold out. Thanks for coming out. Just going to go through a little rundown of the Phase 3 bond projects that we have going on. Speak about the natural grass athletic fields that we're going to be doing at Woodland and East Meadow High School. These fields will be renovated in the same construction techniques and maintenance practices as we did here at Salisbury. That field has held up very, very well. This is a picture of Salisbury right now. It was taken on the 7th, November 7th. The field has been used widely. It's held up very, very well. We haven't had any issues with it. Two more pictures here of Salisbury. You could see the bleachers in the background. This field was used by the lacrosse teams and soccer. Lacrosse nets were up for quite a while. We haven't had any trouble with the actual turf itself. This is an aerial view of East Meadow High School, and you'll see here, these are the fields that will be renovated. You have in the middle the multi-sport field surrounded by the track, flanked by the renovated soccer field and practice field and softball field. The tennis courts have already been renovated in 2018. This here is also an aerial view of the Woodland Middle School multi-sport field. Down on the right, you'll see an example of a field in Bronxville, New York. Oh, excuse me. I think I hit Siri. So we'll separate it out into 4 parts of the construction process. Right here, we're at pre-design. This is where our architect orders basically an inspection of the site as you see it. A topographical survey is existing play fields, the elevations, any sidewalks, curbs, and drainage. Subsurface investigation, here we locate all our underground utilities, anything that's underground that we might hit or disturb when we're digging. Soil borings, where we actually core sample the soil to determine the soil characteristics. Then we move into the demolition phase. Here we actually remove fencing, goals, and other structures, and we sod cut the existing grass field and remove that material off-site. We remove and stockpile the topsoil. We keep that on-site. We test that soil for different characteristics. We remove any existing irrigation and drainage systems and remove any unsuitable soil. Then in the construction phase, we do some additional soil testing to verify drainage and the quality. We use a laser transit that will determine how the field is laid out, how we crown the field, which gives it a slight arch to divert water away to the outside. New irrigation system is installed, subsurface drainage systems, small lateral pipes collecting to larger diameter drainage pipes, underground dry wells. Here we add compost to the existing topsoil to the top 12-inch layer of the playing field. Basically preparing the entire site to lay new sod. Here's a cross-section of what the field would look like if you could see it from underground. You could see on the side, to the right, you have a larger pipe with smaller pipes intersecting it. You have some slits in the dirt. Those are sand slits, allow for drainage. And then you have your soil on top of your new irrigation system. Then once the new field has been installed, we establish a system to maintain it. The contractor installing the field will offer a 2-year maintenance program where they address issues of seeding and fertilization. They'll demonstrate to our staff how to use the irrigation system, how to maintain it, proper mowing techniques, and just how to care for the natural turf. We then take over and we provide an annual maintenance service where we bring in a contractor. We do several different We treat the field several different ways. There's a couple of organic chemicals that we'll use. They're not chemicals. We have corn gluten, compost tea, and some natural organic materials that we'll add to it. We do seasonal overseeding. We do 4 times a year. Aeration, overseeding, and top dressing. Long-term maintenance will replace turf if needed in heavily grown areas on the playing field. Aeration, overseeding, and organic amenities 4 times a year. Any questions?
Before we ask questions, let me just contextualize to explain to the Board of Education why this presentation. Over the past several months, stemming back to a forum that was conducted here, we had a conversation about the possibility of doing turf fields. However, one of the foundations that we have to lay is that we're currently in the midst of a bond that was approved by the community, wherein phase 3 of the bond is being prepared to go into effect. So it's prudent in any conversation about any changes that we have a discussion of what currently exists and what the possibilities can be for the future as it relates to the bond. Mr. Melnick will talk about some other steps that we need to take along the road in this conversation about the fields here in the East Meadow School District. So to ensure that everyone who's sitting in this room understands the purpose behind this presentation, it's to demonstrate that we're currently in phase 3 of bond implementation. However, doesn't mean that we're doing any work. That is the work that is on the horizon based on voters who decided to approve the bond. I just want to be clear about that so that there's no misconceptions in terms of the conversation that we're having. This is a multi-step process that will occur within the context of our budget development. Remember, We need to be able to finance anything that we do in this district. Also, a bond, as quiet as it's kept, is not something that can be easily undone. i.e., it's very difficult to undo an election. I'll leave it at that for now. So, thank you very much. I'd like to turn the program over to the board to ask any questions that they may have.
Thank you very much. This is a very ignorant question, so please bear with me. We're installing sprinklers, is that correct?
Yes.
To help. Now, are we installing sprinklers at Woodland and East Meadow High School?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just,
Okay.
What is the life of a field like this? What is the useful life of it? When would we need to replace it?
A natural turf field can last indefinitely if properly maintained.
I have a question about the usage of the field. Right now, our fields get a lot of usage above and beyond our regular curricular program and extracurricular program. Will this natural field be able to support the level of use that our fields are currently getting, except in a better way than they've been in the past?
Yeah, the use of the organic fertilizers that we use will allow for a more rapid recovery, so to speak, for fields that are heavily used.
Could I just jump in real quick, and maybe Dr. Pizzo, you could add to this? When I first got here, that was one of the conversations that we started having with the Board of Education, the overuse of our fields, and there has always been historically a willingness on the part of past boards to allow any agency that comes forward to utilize the field. I think as we move forward, whatever decision is made, that is something that needs to be revisited by this board to ensure that our fields remain in tip-top shape for the use of our athletes. While we are community-oriented, it's really important that we begin to think about how the overuse of our fields impacts community resources and how it landed us at this current conversation, right? Because the state of our fields is not based on overuse by our students, it's based on overuse by agencies. Some of those agencies, believe it or not, come from as far as Queens to play baseball on our fields. I'll turn it over to Dr. Pizzo if you'd like to add to that.
I would also say not just for the use of our students, I would say for the use and the safety of our students, because that's imperative. May I ask one more question? Is that all right?
Sure.
In terms of the upkeep, and to quote Eileen, it's a bit of an ignorant question because I know nothing about grounds crews.
Okay.
What is required in terms of a grounds crew size to keep the level of condition that we would expect?
Okay. Right now, our grounds crew is big enough to handle what we're going to do. We've turned over the organic care of the fields to a contractor. Normally, in the past, they've come in twice a year. We now have them come in 4 times a year. During those periods of time where they come in, they aerate the fields, overseed, add topsoil, top dressing. We put that in the hands of an outside contractor at a level that we haven't done before. We've done some other things to maintain the fields. As far as Salisbury goes, we actually use one piece of equipment to cut Salisbury. And the reason we do that, we don't use it on any of the other fields because we don't want to introduce, perhaps pick up weeds and other invasive seeds to this field and bring it here and it could get established on the grass out here. So far, this grass is holding up very, very well.
And just to follow up, the cost of outside contracting as opposed to staff upkeep, how does that compare?
I'll turn that over to Dr. Pizzo. He has a little more information on that.
When it comes to field treatments, regardless of what solution you use in regards to the treatments, it's always required a pesticide applicator's license. So that is common in schools in the K-12 environment to turn that over. It's arduous to maintain that license, and you would have to have multiple people with it. So, I think that what we're doing is probably the best alternative. It's definitely the most often used alternative from my understanding.
And you said they're coming in 4 times a year now, as opposed to 2, which they used to, is that the case?
Yes, and also there was something that's been increased and that Craig has increased further was the aeration. I think the biggest problem that you have on fields is the compaction and also the lack of the proper infrastructure. This field out back, it's a completely different field than any of the other fields. It was set up using this process so that it has a chance to recover because you have the irrigation, you have the drainage system, and you have a field that was really a grass field that was designed to be a sports field. There's different types of grass, so it was put together to perform that function, where previously we had an open field where we put a building and then lined around the building without really converting the fields. So it's really kind of a far different solution than what we had in the past. And with this extra work, we're looking at getting a good return on investment because the infrastructure is in place that we could benefit from that type of investment.
I have one more question, and I think that this probably comes back to us, but I just want to throw it out there. When we have events at East Meadow High School, such as graduation and some other big school events, a lot of the times cars are being parked on our fields, not on the multi-purpose, multi-sport field, but on the surrounding fields. They allow cars to be parked. I'd imagine that would be something that would do damage to an actual field, correct, with the irrigation, and so we would need to stop that.
We would absolutely need to stop that regardless of what solution. There's no field that you would use new based on any type of application, artificial or natural, that could withstand having cars parked on like that.
Right, so I just want to make sure that we understand that from either solution, artificial or natural, that we have to start, well, parents are going to have to understand that there may not be as many parking spots is sort of where I'm going.
Yeah, I think that's a...
It's going to be a procedural change that we're going to have to make.
And it's difficult because I know we have people who it's a long walk for them to get out there. I understand why it was done. But I think to get the fields that we need, I think there's some sacrifices, and I think that's one.
One question, or actually 2 questions. You had stated that the field, to go back to the Salisbury field, it was used frequently, as I think what you said. I might be wrong, but have we used that field in the fall?
It's been in use. Yes,
It's been used-
now it hasn't been in use without the bleachers, but we have had activities there on a very regular basis.
Soccer games.
So
had soccer
yes, it's
games
been in
on that
regular
field?
use.
Yeah, soccer games during the fall season.
Well, I know lacrosse, the spring, we stopped using it for lacrosse.
Yeah. When was the last time they did it? Christy, when?
Right, but then we had stopped it because the field was not taking, the seed was not taking.
I think that we had disallowed practice on the field. I think that was the issue in the spring, because we had practice fields that were in place. Am I correct, Ms. Detour?
Right, okay, so since the spring season, have we used the field at all?
Yes.
We have, okay, that was my question.
Yeah, the field was used for the fall soccer season.
For the fall soccer,
Soccer
okay.
season. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, with what level of frequency?
Every day.
Every day?
Remember, my office faces the field.
Yeah, I'm asking because I'm football. I have no idea, so that's why I'm
No,
asking.
the field was used every evening for fall soccer. As a matter of fact, there were games that would run until 9 o'clock, as well as cross-country track, conditioning. You could look out my window and you would see kids on the field. In addition to that, over the course of the summer, we had community residents using the field.
Right.
That's one of the things about a field that's in a community like this, that people will use it. They'll play pickup games over the summer. Every day, people were outside on that field.
Absolutely, yeah. No, my son's been there quite a few, but.
So just a quick question, though. Just as a point of information, the football games were played at Clark in the fall.
The reason for that is because the bleachers, the concession stand, and all the other accoutrements that go along with, the stadium are not in place, and we hope that those things will be in by the spring.
So next fall, we expect football games from Clark to be played here at Salisbury?
That is our hope, our intent.
Thank you.
So I have a follow-up question regarding the sprinkler system. It just takes me a few minutes to process things. I know as a homeowner, maintenance of sprinkler systems can be costly. We're now looking at a very big endeavor, and I'm just curious, because we are stewards of the community's pocketbook, factoring in commercial-grade sprinklers, how does that factor in cost-wise to they wouldn't be necessary with turf, is that correct?
With artificial turf? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking? Well, artificial turf doesn't require sprinklers.
Sprinklers.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just one more. The irrigation, that was actually was going to be my next question. So we are on schedule for demolition. I think it's yet to be determined which avenue we're going to take. Demolition can start even though we haven't determined which avenue we're going to follow. Is that correct? Or would a decision have to be made prior to the demolition?
Nothing is going to happen during the winter. So
Okay.
this would be something after we are contacted by the state, and that would be the time when we would have the ability to go forward, not necessarily going forward, but we'd have the ability to go forward, and the board would, of course, be
So
on that.
high school graduation would not be interrupted.
No.
However,
Depends on your time, timing out
next
that one. Yeah.
sports season
I think,
would be,
can I jump in
either
real
way,
quick?
correct?
I think that just as we had planned accordingly through Ms. Detour's office, when we're taking fields offline, there has to be a solution or an alternative for where kids are going to practice, where they're going to play. And those things will happen. Once again, to put things into context, why we're having this conversation is because there are a lot of moving pieces in terms of whatever decision we make. And so one of the things that we're attempting to do is to make sure that the board is fully aware of all the moving parts. The reason why we talked about phase 3 of the bond is because if we decided to go to another alternative, we need to then prepare for what are the unintended consequences. For example, if hypothetically we decided to suspend work on phase 3, that means nothing is happening in 2020. We stay in the current state that we're in, where our fields are deteriorating. We also then need to restart redevelopment of what we're going to do next, which will require us to go through voter approval, state approval. So there's going to be a timeline. That's one of the reasons why this has to be a methodical, thoughtful process, because it impacts the taxpayers, it impacts our student athletes, and it impacts our community. So we're starting in phases, because the next phase of tonight's presentation will be a presentation about grass and turf, just so that the board has enough information. And Mr. Melnick will discuss what will happen tonight in executive session with our bond counsel. Go ahead.
I just, can I, just because you mentioned the bond, and that's absolutely not my strong suit, and Dr. Pizzo has tried to explain it to me many, many, many times. It, as you say, and I've never thought of this, if we halted, are we in breach of any bond?
No, I mean, discuss?
I'm going to be very careful because our general counsel is sitting here. He could jump in at any time. Tonight, our next plan after the next presentation will be for the bond to engage with our bond counsel so that bond counsel can answer those questions about what can we or cannot do to the current bond. Because that will set us up to then to develop options that the board can then review that may or may not have an impact on our budget development for 2021 and 21-22. So, like I said, process, right, to make sure that we're covering all bases because we're talking about the resources of our community.
We're good, that canceled out my questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yikes.
I just have one final question. You had stated that the grounds crew that we have now are capable of handling it since we're having this outside party. How many men do we have on our grounds crew?
9.
9.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's for the whole district?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're Skyping.
All right, we are going to attempt a Skype for our next presentation. Excellent. This presentation is going to be by Dr. Adam Toms, who's an assistant professor of commercial turfgrass at Iowa State. We hope.
As we get Professor Toms on the line, I think Dr. Pizzo has some background notes on Professor Toms so that everyone is aware of who he is and what his credentials are.
Yes, Dr. Adam Toms is a doctor of philosophy. He completed his doctorate in the University of Tennessee. He is a Master of Science from the University of Tennessee, a Master of Science and a Bachelor of Science from Iowa State University. He's received many different awards and scholarly recognition. One of the reasons why we did look at many different speakers, what I thought was interesting about Dr. Toms is that after he completed his coursework for his PhD, he did work with in the artificial turf industry. So he's kind of seen it from different angles, which was our intent, and he's looking to speak to basically some issues in regards to what his thoughts are, some issues specifically with artificial turf, because that's something that I know a lot of people would like to hear further about. And if we can get him, I think he could add a lot to the conversation.
What? They have the computer. Joanne, maybe type hello, are you there?
It's not going to go through, yeah.
Dr. Card is to move on to other items while we wait for this to work, and then we can come back to it when hopefully Iowa gets Wi-Fi. They're working on it now. As I say that, as we didn't have Wi-Fi when we started. The next item on the agenda is the second reading of Policy 1510, which is fundraising and public sales on school property. And Mr. Russo, I believe I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. So we have a second reading of two policies. The first policy is fundraising and public sales on school property, Policy 1510. And this policy was revised to reflect our current practices that are in place regarding fundraising. So the last time this policy was revised was in 2005, so we did review the policy and made some changes based upon our current practices, and that's what the revisions reflect. Okay. Second policy is credit cards, which is 2515, and this policy was revised to reflect a title change from Assistant to the Superintendent for Administration and Special Projects to Director of Facilities. And that's it. So, okay.
Yes.
So what happens is we have a second reading this evening, and then based upon this second reading, these revisions to these existing policies become part of the policy manual.
And there were no revisions from the first reading till now, correct?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve Policy 1510, fundraising and public sales on school property? Dr. Luce. Second, Ms. Baruch. Any further discussion? All in favor? 7-0. The next one is the second reading of the credit card policy 2515. Would someone like to make a motion to approve? Ms. Napolitano. Second, Ms. Baruch. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Okay, excellent. Are we good? No, not yet? We're going to keep going, okay. Moving on to the CSE and CPSE approvals. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the CSE and CPSE approvals? Ms. Baruch, second, Dr. Luce. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. We're doing the first two separate.
Yes.
Next is a stipulation of settlement agreement that the board has come to. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the stipulation of settlement? Ms. Napolitano, second. Ms. Tell, any discussion on this matter? No?
I'm very pleased. Yes.
Yes. I think a win-win. Would someone like to, would all in favor, actually? 7-0. Excellent. And the next is the Board of Education Officer Compensation Supervisory Stipends that we have to, I guess haven't been updated. But we are now updating to reflect those officers who are compensated for work done outside of their regular responsibilities. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the compensation? Ms. Napolitano, second, Ms. Tell. Any discussion?
I'd just like to commend the board for its transparency on these specific issues that the community might not know about.
Excellent. All in favor? 7-0. Excellent, thank you. We can now move into the, yeah? No? Okay, consent agenda items within here. Would someone like to make a motion to approve these personnel items 3 through 22 on tonight's agenda? Ms. Benowitz? Second, Dr. Eckers. All in favor? Done purposely. 7-0. Next is the consent agenda business items. Would someone like to make a motion to approve items 1 through 10? When we do the discussion. Now you're going to get the first on that. Ms. Baruch, second. Ms. Napolitano, discussion?
I have a question.
Do the question.
I just wanted to understand what the Health Services Lawrence Public Schools was, because there's nothing attached.
Oh, there we go.
So we have a student that is attending a school in Cedarhurst in the Lawrence Public School District, and at the reorg meeting, we did not include Lawrence as part of the health services. You're welcome.
All in favor? 7-0.
We have them on the phone, we're just trying to get in touch. Wherever you have difficulty. You might come to the microphone.
We tried turning it off and turning it back on.
What's his address?
Someone like to make a motion to approve salary changes? Ms. Baruch, second Dr. Luce. We're going to wait 15 seconds, and all in favor? 7-0, okay. So Popeyes popped up just now, that was interesting. So, since we're still hopefully waiting, getting this soon, hopefully, maybe. Why don't we do the second commentary section for those items not involving turf or grass fields? Is that good? No? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, we'll do that. I agree, we do it. I agree with me. If Ms. Taylor would like to come up, just as Ms. Giselle Taylor, as you're coming up, just to say for this secondary commentary section, now and later, hopefully, you're limited to 3 minutes to address the board. If I cut you off, it's not because I like or dislike what you're saying, but solely because you get your 3.
Okay.
Welcome.
So, first of all, thank you for being a board member and taking the time out to do this. I just wanted to find out where we are in the process of moving forward with technology. Specifically, well, I don't know if you have an Apple TV, but maybe you could FaceTime too. But basically, I wanted to find out where we are with Smart Bond, and if we get any funding from E-rate. And specifically, also, I'd love to see tablets in the classroom, like 6 in each elementary teacher's classroom to support their curriculum, do centers with. I think that would be lovely moving forward into the middle school, more Chromebooks. And I don't know if we have a one-to-one initiative or not, but that would be great too. So I just don't know where we are at and what we need to do to get there as far as infrastructure or whatnot.
Yeah.
Long and the short is, we just recently was approved for our Smart Bond, $4.1 million. Thanks to that young lady right back there, Ms. Joanne Nakarado, who's our Director of Technology. We're currently in the process of engaging in conversations with contractors regarding the wiring of our buildings because we first have to deal with our infrastructure. The first place that we're starting is actually in the middle schools because we do contemplate sometime in the not too distant future going to a one-to-one environment. But of course, that's going to take a while, right? Because based on some of the learning that many of us have had, infrastructure has to be first. However, we have already started that professional development that is required amongst our teachers because we're thinking about shifting the paradigm for teaching. We've already started that with the rollout of Chromebook carts at both the elementary, middle school, and high school, and it has taken off with a bang. As a matter of fact, last spring, we did have a presentation here by many teachers who are using the Chromebook carts. So the questions that you ask are good questions, and we are definitely a district on the move. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
And please come back, keep asking.
Yes, thank you very much. Next is Donald and Linda Conroy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. The reason why I'm up here is because I'm very passionate regarding the cameras on the school buses. I know earlier this year, we did a pilot program, and it was extremely successful. There were 9 buses that were used, and within a 1-month period, there were 615 violations given out, okay? In all of 2018, Nassau County gave out 79 tickets, okay? Huge difference, okay? As far as I'm concerned, the safety of our children begins the moment they walk out the front door in the morning and the minute they come back to our homes safely. Okay, that is to all of our children, not just my child. It's everyone's child. Other things that I wanted to bring up was,
Now that it's been passed by Cuomo.
now that it's been passed by Cuomo, it was passed August 6th.
State funded.
State funded, where are we at right now? I mean, it's not costing us anything. You know, the violators, the fines are paying for the program. So I almost think it's almost like a no-brainer.
Ask them where the district is.
You know, where is the district right now, you know, with this program? Where are we at? Yes, thank you, Mr. Card, I really would.
Okay, while the governor signed the bill into law,
Right.
it is also up to each individual municipality to pass ordinances related to stop-arm cameras on school buses. Also, it is not a venture that school districts will be paying for. The way in which the program is supposed to work is that there are private companies that will supply these cameras for buses with the intent of recouping their investment over time. Once that investment has been recouped, then it will be a split between the company, the municipality, and the school district. So while it's something that has been touted as something that's really good, we're still waiting for vendors to enter the marketplace who will supply these cameras because the bus companies are not supplying them, and for us as a school district, the cost associated with putting cameras on buses would be monumental and not something that we can currently carry at this moment. So therein lies some of the delay. Fortunately, we were one of few school districts that decided to participate in the pilot last spring because many school districts, for the very reasons that I just pointed out, decided not to participate because it developed a false sense of or false expectations. It is something that is going to happen over time, but we're definitely willing to move forward when we're presented with a company that will provide cameras to the buses.
Okay, I know one of the companies, there were two companies involved, was Bus Control, Patrol was one of the firms behind the technology, and then the Logan Bus Company. Those were the two companies, bus companies, that were part of the pilot program. So I'm just, I'm just here for the safety of our children. I know my daughter has said that they've had lockdown drills for the safety, with the Nassau County Police Department. And that's worked out wonderful for the children. My daughter's come home, she's told me all about it. So, within the schools, we have something in place in case, God forbid, anything happens. It's just now getting the children safely to and from school. Whether you're a busser, whether you're a walker, whether you're a biker, it's just about getting the kids safely to school.
Thank you, Ms. Conroy. That's 3 minutes, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I know that's something that's very important to us as well, and that's why we participated in the pilot program to begin with, and we'll continue looking into this as it becomes available to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think now we have Dr. Toms. No, we're turning up the volume on you. Hold on one second. You want to just speak a little so that we can get our volume right here?
Yeah, is that helping?
Oh, yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, yeah, a little bit of time there.
Are we good?
Okay, we're ready, Dr. Toms, if you're ready.
Dr. Toms, thank you very much for being with us tonight, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, sure, no problem. So I guess I was invited to talk to you guys a little bit about athletic field safety. You're kind of weighing out some of the alternatives right now between synthetic turf and natural turf fields. Just a little bit of my background. I'm an assistant professor at Iowa State, specializing in sports turf safety and use of athletic fields. My goal is to have a safe and high-performing athletic field, whether it be natural grass or synthetic. Our motto out here always is, the best athletic surface is one no one talks about. So that's one. That means that the game was played where the athletes didn't have to worry about it, and so they were, very confident to perform the way that they wanted to without worrying about their safety. So that's our goal. I specialize my PhD project looking at comparing synthetic turf and natural grass, and my actual project was funded by a synthetic turf company. They came to us when I was at the University of Tennessee working on my PhD, saying, we know natural turf is the preferred surface of most athletes. We know that, we've made improvements compared to the old synthetic turf, but we wanted to play more, synthetic turf to play more like natural grass. And so I spent a lot of my PhD working on that, testing it. And so hopefully tonight I can share some of the information that I learned with you guys and some of the other information that I've reviewed. And so I'm not sure what your goals are here with your playing surface. Both natural and synthetic turf, they both have their pros, they both have their cons. And so, both of them, I want to start out by saying, both of them require maintenance, either one of which are maintenance free. So if you're making a decision on one surface to say, we want to put it in so we don't have to maintain it, that's a really scary proposition. There are terrible natural grass fields out there that are poorly maintained, they're unsafe. And there are a ton of synthetic fields out there that are not maintained and they're not safe as well. And so maintenance really is the number one thing, and willing to have someone care for that playing surface is really important to keep the kids safe. So a little bit of the background here. If you have a very high wear area, obviously synthetic turf is, can handle more traffic than natural grass as far as that goes. If you're going to use the field every day, all day, definitely natural grass cannot handle that wear and tear. as far as that standard goes. A word of caution on that, on an 80-degree day, a lot of my research has shown that asphalt's going to be 146 degrees Fahrenheit, and synthetic turf is going to be over 180 degrees. Obviously, a young child standing on that field, their feet are in contact with that surface, their heart has to pump harder to pump blood away, and so, to move that blood, circulate it to try to cool the body, and so that takes a toll on the athlete. I'm not saying that you can't use it during that, just make sure to get the athletes off, give them a few more breaks, keep them well hydrated. That's the goal there during those periods that are really hot. Just for word or information for your own, typically natural grass is going to be 5 degrees above or below air temp. So it's pretty well self-regulating because of the fact that it transpires. A little bit about some of the other injury data. Specifically, American football players is what a lot of the injury data has been done on. What we've seen is at the highest level, Division I, Division II, Division III athletes have seen a higher rate of PCL leg injuries as far as that goes on artificial turf than natural grass. We have not seen a statistical difference in injury rates between MCL injuries or medial meniscal or lateral meniscal injuries to the knee on either surface. So definitely there's a higher rate of ACL injuries on artificial turf than natural grass as well. When you start to look at soccer players, soccer really surprisingly, with all the cutting and maneuvering that they do, we haven't seen a ton of injury differences between synthetic turf and natural turf. One of my PhD projects we did look at, we built a robotic leg, because obviously we're not going to go to the university board and say, hey, we want to get a bunch of kids out here and see if they're going to tear their ACL on this surface. So we built a robotic leg to test different surfaces, and what we found was every foot strike on a synthetic surface had a little bit higher force back on the leg, so a little bit higher likelihood of tearing or causing pain to the athlete as far as that goes. That goes right in line with NFL surveys. They've seen time and time again. NFL players say, after I play on a synthetic game, I'm a little more achy. Well, if there's more force returned to the body on a synthetic surface than a natural grass, that would explain why they're a little more achy after that game. Typically a week goes by, the players say that they feel better, and they don't really notice it. So that is something there. Another thing that they've seen with artificial turf, just to give you an idea, is if you do decide to go that route, I would expect either some sort of a pad underneath the surface, or if you're going to infill it with some sort of a crumb rubber or any type of material like that, you need to be at least at 6 pounds of that material to 9 pounds per square foot. And that's the cushioning component of synthetic turf. So that would be, if an athlete falls on that, to give them a little cushion. It also protects and that cleat interacts with that surface a little bit more. And at the 6 to 9 pound range per square foot, that extra material in there kind of protects the foot from locking. And so it gives you a little bit of a leeway there. So the cleat's not going to stick in that surface, it's going to lower injury rate. So that's just between surfaces as far as that goes. When we look at NFL data, just to give you a few other things, what we found is that typically players have a 16% increase in lower extremity injuries when they do play on a synthetic surface than natural grass. Of course, this is at the NFL level. They're doing the ultimate in maintenance on both their synthetic and natural grass surfaces. So, if you're not going to maintain a natural grass surface and it's poor, obviously that wouldn't compare to a synthetic surface, but if you're not maintaining that, there's issues there as well. There's no difference in Achilles ruptures, whether it's synthetic or natural grass, so there's no difference there as far as that goes. Just to give you a little bit of information there. Couple other things, just out of curiosity, if you're curious, I don't know if rugby's a big deal out there for you guys, if rugby's a school sport, but again, we really didn't see any difference in player injury rates there between synthetic and natural grass either. There has been a lot of research with cleats and cleat types, and if you do go with a synthetic type surface, I would like you to be aware, Penn State University has a website They show cleats that are suggested to not be used on a synthetic surface. They just get too much traction, too high of a likelihood of an athlete getting injured on that surface. Briefly, too, I've mentioned over and over again about maintenance. What does that look like on a synthetic surface? On a synthetic surface, typically, when you buy a surface like that, they're going to tell you you need to go in and decompact that chrome rubber and flip it around. Anytime you walk on those fields, that's going to walk off in the athlete's shoes. It's going to get spread by them playing. So again, it's important to go out, make sure that rubber is spread around properly, just like you would mow a natural grass field. You're going to have to go out and sweep that field, as they call that. So that's maintenance, what it looks like in synthetic turf. Natural grass, what we're talking about maintenance, obviously is mowing it. We'd also like to see you aerify the field. That reduces some of the compaction. So that's some of the things that have to go into those fields as well. The other thing with natural grass, obviously clay, wear. It's going to wear down that surface, and so you're going to want to go out and spread some grass seed as well. Those are the big maintenance things there. And then the other thing, the final component that I really think is important for all of you to consider is testing the field. There's companies out there that are certified to test your athletic fields, so no matter what you do, you can test it for surface hardness. That gives you an idea of the likelihood of a kid suffering a traumatic brain injury on that playing surface. So that's just good to have information. And if you go the synthetic route, you definitely do that. That will tell you when your synthetic surface needs to be replaced. Natural grass-wise, it would also tell you when you can do some of the cultural practices like aerifying or adding more water, things like that. So I guess at this point, do you have any questions? I've thrown a lot of stuff at you. I didn't want to spend a super long time boring you with all the details. I just wanted to provide you kind of a lot of the quick facts that I know.
First of all, congratulations on the birth of your child.
Oh yeah, thank you.
We had to get that out there because I know our last meeting, your wife was kind of due any day, so congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. There's been a lot of talk about carcinogens in the substance that turf is made of. So I'm curious to know, because we live on Long Island and there's a lot of turf fields, and I can't imagine that other school districts are going to put their children in harm's way. So have there been advances in the technology that addresses those concerns?
Yeah, that's a great question. The carcinogens issue, there are definitely carcinogens that are used in the manufacturing of synthetic turf. Now, if we rewind back a few years ago, it's probably close to 10 now, but synthetic turf had high amounts of lead in the fibers at the time that they were using to manufacture then. And public outcry came and said, hey, you can't be doing this. And so they changed the way they were making it. I would assume that, at some point in time here soon that we'll see more changes to that, and hopefully that'll be addressed as far as that goes. But there are some carcinogens, and some companies have admitted to that they do have some carcinogens in their manufacturing process.
If I may ask, I have two questions. The first one is, what's going on in terms of newer technology and the rates of testing in terms of carcinogenic materials?
Yeah, I can't really speak to the newest technology that they're testing right now. This issue is really popping up recently. It's really hot, and we're just trying to wrap our heads around all the science out there as far as that goes. So I'm just aware of the problem being there, and I would hope that they're addressing that quickly as well.
Okay, so you don't know about newer materials per se as of this date?
I don't know as of today the newest materials and what they're doing to address that specifically as of today.
Okay. The other question I have is in terms of both short-term and long-term cost of both installation and maintenance. How do the two compare?
Sure. So cost-wise, the very first time you install a synthetic field, you need to put in proper drainage and a gravel base. If you cut corners there, what's going to happen is you're going to have a large rain event. Water's going to back up in your synthetic field. It's going to float the carpet. and you're going to have to replace that. So you're going to have to put in the money for proper drainage and gravel base, and then the synthetic turf. So it's probably in the range of $1 to $1.5 million. Now, after 8 years, typically 8 to 10 years, depending on how much you use that surface, you're going to have to replace that synthetic surface, and that would be a cost of around anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000, possibly up to $800,000, depending on what logos you have in that field, things like that. Natural turf field that you have, I don't know if you're looking to put sand down and kind of create more of a sand-based type playing surface, but that'll range anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 to install that brand new, and put in drainage and all of that as well. And as long as you keep aerifying that and throwing grass seed, you should have pretty minimal cost as far as that goes long term. You won't have to replace that. But there will be a higher, yearly maintenance equipment, things like that on a natural grass field. It won't be to the extent of, $1 million, but.
Is there a factor in terms of recouping revenue, meaning is there a rate of return? Is that something that's applicable in a turf field?
Yeah, so some school districts will, they put in a turf field, they can host more events, and some rent it out to try to, recoup some of that revenue. The one word of caution that I've seen from some schools is they didn't set that bar high enough for that cost. And so, just like anything, you use it a lot, you're going to wear it out quicker. And so they wore it out quicker. Yes, they got some of the revenue back, but the field wore out quicker because they were renting it out to everybody. And so they didn't recoup what they thought they would. So that is an option, though. It's definitely to rent it out and use it to pay it off.
You said your PhD was, or your project was to figure out which was better, I guess, or which was more desirable, the turf or natural grass. What was the final result?
The actual goal of that project was to make it, to determine a lot of the safety factors, things like that. It wasn't necessarily to say which one was better. It was just to kind of compare the two and see the safety factors. I still feel in my heart that a well-maintained natural grass field is better than a well-maintained synthetic field. To me, the ability of an athlete to make a cut, and if their foot gets stuck, they're going to tear some turf up, and that energy is going to be dissipated away from their body, as opposed to their cleat getting stuck in that surface and the energy getting sent back up into their body. That to me is a safety factor that natural grass has well over synthetic turf. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing is the heating issue that really bothers me or worries me on synthetic turf right now.
Thank you.
One more question. Just curious, because I'm sure that your study encompassed across the country. Climate is, I would imagine, a big factor. How does climate factor into either of these issues? We're in the Northeast. We pretty much have 2 seasons. So.
Yeah. So obviously, I live in the Midwest now, and I can tell you that both our natural and synthetic football fields here on campus are both frozen right now, and they both freeze. In the summer months, the synthetic turf gets really hot. It's a mechanism there no matter where it is. It's the fact that it does a phenomenal job of capturing the sunlight energy and storing. And so as long as there's sunlight energy present, no matter where it is, on a sunny day, Northeast gets warm, I know, maybe not for as many days as say in the Southeast or Florida or Texas, but it's still going to get really hot. Like I said, it's an 80-degree day. Whether it's in Pennsylvania or Las Vegas, it's still going to get to be 160 to 180 degrees ground temperature.
Last question, and then I promise I'm going to be done. Was a study ever done or a questionnaire ever proposed to the athletes? We're very fortunate that we have stellar athletes that we're very proud of. I'm just wondering, was that any part of your study? Was there any feedbacks from the athletes in terms of they felt a better performance rate or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've never dealt with that. I've read a lot of reviews of athletes rating the surface, and there's twofold there. Number one, if the athlete won the game, that always weighs how the field played. So that's first and foremost. But typically, players prefer a natural grass surface. They typically feel like it's a safer surface for them. We have seen a little bit of a shift now, I will say, with the younger generation that's now starting to come to college, and they've grown up on these newer synthetic fields. I don't necessarily say that synthetic is a worse surface. They just don't really care at this point. They feel like they play similarly as far as that goes. At the NFL level, the players come back year after year saying that their favorite fields are always natural grass. So that's the data that they collect. Major League Baseball, they're almost all on natural grass, so that's not really a fair comparison there.
If there are no further questions, Dr. Toms, I want to thank you for your time and being available to us tonight. And
Sure, no problem. Good luck. Let me know if I can help you along the way.
thank you very much, and I hope you're getting some sleep.
Sleep, yeah.
All right, thank you, Dr. Thompson.
So, and I think we could turn down the mic a little because people don't need to hear me that well. So I think we can have as a board a discussion now in regards to this, what we've sort of been talking about and discussing. This is just one part of it, or actually one of many parts of it. I'll take the first two parts easily. One is if we decide to do this, then decide to go the way of turf fields is then how are we going to pay for it, and can we pay for it, and how would we pay for it? Scenario, if we decide not to do turf fields, then that scenario 2 goes away. Then, to bring it back to the first one, if we decide to go with turf fields, it then becomes which turf fields, how are we going to figure out, which surface that we're looking at, trying to find, which then, as everything else does, brings us right back to the cost and how we're going to pay for it. To talk a little bit, or not talk a little bit about that second part with how we're going to pay for it, in executive session, which we're going to have after the meeting tonight, our bond counsel will be speaking with us to discuss, in relation to the bond, what we can and cannot do to a bond that has been passed that we now must abide by because our voters have voted for it. So we're going to have to limit our conversation now, but it will be on the agenda for the December 4th meeting to discuss the financing portion if we have made the decision to consider moving forward with a turf field. Would anyone else like to say something?
The only thing I would like to say is that I think it's really important that in making this decision, we do whatever we can to find out the current research on newer alternatives to crumb rubber.
Yeah, and as we do this, obviously, we're going to be looking at what the newest and best technology is, knowing that by the time this field would go in, it's likely not the newest technology. We're already, a year or maybe even 2 past it at that point.
And I would also say, in our cost consideration, how does the newer technology compare in cost to what we're looking at now?
Right, and I would think, and Dr. Pizzo, maybe you know this off the top of your head, I would think putting in a field today is less expensive than it was 10 years ago, turf field.
Yeah, I think it's come down a bit, and I think there are newer technologies that are more of a food-based type products. I think that's something that we could get information on. I know they haven't been widely used. I think they, from what research I did, that there are some in place in Westchester. We could always reach out and gather whatever information the board so directs.
Excellent, thank you. I think one of the things that was just sort of enlightening was I didn't realize, I knew that the turf fields were hotter to run on as it was, but 80 degrees is a fairly low temp for what we get here in the spring and summer seasons and even in the fall seasons other than today. So that's interesting that it gets that hot and as a surface to play on. Anyone else have comments or something they'd like to add? Okay. Then with that, I want to thank you guys and thank Dr. Toms again. And we will move back to the second commentary section. And with that, I'd like to invite up Ms. Collins. Just a reminder of the 3-minute rule, and then Ms. Baruch comes over and grabs the mic and starts running.
Hi, thank you for listening to me tonight. Actually, one of my questions were addressed. It was about the stop arm camera. So I don't have, that's 1 minute gone. My other question is there any way that we can ever revise the school calendar to include perhaps the Wednesday of Thanksgiving off or the Friday of Memorial Day weekend off? I understand that we observe a lot of religious holidays. Some of them are lunar, so we didn't have to observe some this year. But perhaps if the children can go back to school before Labor Day, I know a lot of people won't be happy about that, but people are more than happy to send their kids, people are happy to send their kids to school before Labor Day for sports, so why can't they go back for 2 extra days of classes?
We are required to be in session for a minimum of 180 days. So it's always dependent upon how the calendar shakes out in terms of how we identify days off. Also, we have a contractual obligation to our teaching unit in terms of when we actually start school. We can't start school in this district before September 1st. In some other districts, you can have Superintendent's Conference Day on August 30th, August 31st. That's a function of their contract. We're faced with not a challenge, but a hurdle next year in that Tuesday is September 1st in 2020, which happens before Labor Day. So more than likely, school will start before Labor Day. And because we're a district in which we do not have a limit on the number of days that teachers can work, we potentially can have 188 school days. So one of the things that the board will have to wrestle with, yes, of course. One of the things that the board will have to wrestle with is how do we maximize time on task for kids, while at the same time recognize that, yeah, maybe we might need to look at that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Yeah, maybe we might need to look at that day before Memorial Day. Also, next year, Easter and Passover are simultaneous, and it's only a week. And that's how come we're ending up with 188 days. And finally, one of the considerations that the board is going to have to think about is Election Day. Given the fact that the New York State Legislature and the governor has signed into law that all employees have a 3-hour time frame in which they could go vote, and it has to happen during their working hours, we might have to use that as a day off instead of a superintendent's conference day, since we know that at least 50 to 60% of our employees will take the day off. The reason why I'm sharing all of this with you is because I wanted everyone to understand there's a lot of considerations for developing a calendar. And finally, I already said finally, right?
You did twice.
We have to, at least I'm no longer saying one more thing. We have to wait until Nassau BOCES publishes their calendar before we could finalize, because our students attend BOCES programs on a half-day cycle. And so we don't want to be closed when BOCES is open and vice versa.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person is Mr. Lako. I don't usually read these, but I want to read what you wrote that you're coming up here for. It's formula of outage numbers and one lovely pony. So that's some great handwriting you have.
Thank you very much, Counselor. It's good to see you. Two quick things before I get to what I was going to talk about tonight, and none of them have to do with turf fields. Just happened to be here on a coincidence for another event. Look at cork fields. My daughter's a goalie, will be a Division I athlete, more than likely. Says the best surface she ever played on. And school calendar. You want Matt Lako for an extra 8 days? Have at it. Good luck to you all. But I do get up here about something that I think is a serious topic, and I've addressed it with the board and with Dr. Card, who have openly said that you guys are going to look at doing a policy around forwarding of materials that come from stuff outside, from entities outside the district. There was an instance where something was forwarded from an elected official, which was a great message about the change of the bicycle helmet laws. Unfortunately, that elected official was also appearing on the ballot not so shortly thereafter, and I felt that what I said in my email to all the board members and the administrative staff, the optics around that were not great. And developing a policy of a one voice, I think is a great idea for this district, because the voice that we do have in superintendent is a pretty good one. He's a great orator and a great writer, and that's exactly what I said to him in the email, that's great that we're putting this out there. Let's put our best foot forward to Dr. Card and have him draft it instead of relying on elected officials who, quite honestly, it was fine. It was fine communication. I think we can do better. And I think I didn't exceed 3 minutes for the first time ever speaking from this podium. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Ms. Volpe, I'm going to call you up, and I'm going to tell you, I'm putting them together, because I know you had one idea, and then you came up with another, I think. Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I have two questions. Was the original bond that was presented to the community, was there a choice for the community? Were they able to choose between turf and grass?
So there wasn't two different bonds, one turf, one grass. However, we did go out for a very long time for discussions with the community as to what they wanted. We sent out surveys, we had meetings, and I can tell you, in being to almost all of those and seeing every survey, is 3 people at the time brought up turf fields as a possibility, and 2 of them were employed by turf field companies.
Okay. When, may I ask, was this research done?
The bond research was done the year, in the lead up to when the bond was passed. So what was the years? I'm not good with years.
2016, 2017.
2016, 17.
Okay. And being educated in all of this, you mentioned that there are 9 grounds crew, who I'm sure are super busy. What would be their, what is the allotted time that they would have to focus on the new grass field if that moves forward, since every single person we've heard from has stressed how important it is the maintenance of a grass field, since it's not just our athletes who are going to be using it, but also the outside community.
I think that from a general sense, I think there's going to be a maintenance schedule, which is typical in most places. As an FYI, I came from a district that had a turf field, smaller than this particular district, where there were only 5 grounds crew members, and a maintenance schedule. You're not doing all fields at the same time.
Right.
If you notice, our fields, like for example, this particular field, there was a crew out there today cutting the grass, pulling up, I guess, leaves, etc. So they're on a maintenance cycle. I think that with Mr. Camarada, we are assured, as he pointed out, that there are certain things that he's already taken into consideration that needs to be done, which includes bringing in outside entities to do some of the heavy lift that is needed. So I think we have a maintenance plan. One of the reasons why we started with Mr. Camarada is because that is an option, phase 3.
Right.
And so one of the things that we have to do is provide the community with a assurance that if we stick with grass, that there is a maintenance plan in place, because that's one of the complaints that we hear from the community and that you're sharing with us. So I'm saying, as well as the board, that we are committed to maintaining whatever it is that we put in place. And with Mr. Camerata at the helm, we're sure that that's going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Mr. Steyer, you're up. Good to see you.
So just kind of piggybacking off of Suzanne with the maintenance, you're saying we're going to go ahead and do better. This was never done before. What kind of assurance are we given? A word is not enough. So you're saying our 9 maintenance guys now are going to take care of these new fields. It's never been done in the past. So that's that. But his whole presentation, I think, was putting holes in the whole thing of a natural grass field. Everything on the construction part needs to be done for that turf field except laying the sod. So that money's there. Everything else he said, as far as maintenance, new contract, we're hiring outside people. Why are we hiring outside people to do work when we don't need to? Put in a turf field, there's gonna be less maintenance. Our maintenance crew can do the work now because there's less maintenance to do. So I feel like everything that Mr. Camerata said in his presentation poked a hole in the whole suggestion of putting in a grass field. I think it's just preposterous. Another thing I want to make, I don't know if I said it before, our athletes, I mean, Mr. Tom's presentation, we've had 2 NFL athletes go through our schools. Thankfully, I don't think we're going to have many more. Hopefully we do. He's talking about NFL grade fields and NFL grade upkeep. We're not going to have that here, let's be honest. It's ridiculous. As far as our students also, our student athletes, we're going to go a full year without a field. And I may have brought this up before, but we got to pay for busing these kids. Some of the people on the board here may have kids in the high school. I know some of them do. Some of them went through. Putting a kid on the bus every day, 5 days a week for a full fall season, full spring season, there's a lot of wear and tear on the mind as well. So I think that's another thing to consider, as well as the cost. I'm sure busing schedules will probably have to bring in more buses, being that high school ends at 2:30, whatever it ends. Now you got to start busing them to whatever field we're paying for, times every single sports team. We still need those buses for Woodland to bus those kids, and then we still have to bus the kids out of all of our elementary schools and middle schools. Sorry, I didn't mean to take Clark out of there. But so everything we say, how the upfront cost of this is going to be higher with turf compared to grass, long-term, over 10 years, you're taking the money out of our taxpayers' pockets, and we're going to feel it, and the upkeep of this field is just going to be one of the worst things I think we could do. Have we talked to other districts or neighboring districts? Merrick, I think, put in 2 fields. Have we talked to them, seeing maybe what kind of cost, how cost-effective it is?
Just as a point of information, those
No, Merrick
fields...
put in turf, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just as a point of information, those fields were actually donated to the Merrick School District. They're not...
I know, it was part
yeah.
of some sort of urban...
So we just have to make sure that...
So not
everyone
Merrick,
in the
let's go to somewhere else. Let's go to Sewanaka. Sewanaka put in 5 turf fields in their high schools. Have we talked to these neighboring districts? I
Yes,
mean,
and South Huntington just went out with a $145 million bond that was roundly rejected by the community.
145,000 is pretty high.
The point that I'm making, Mrs. Steyer, we hear you, and everything that has been said and we have heard is being taken into consideration.
And let's also consider what all our athletes came out, all 100 athletes who
Right.
spoke for 2 hours here. I don't think one kid said, I'd rather have a regular natural grass field. So let's take that into consideration too. And maybe, I don't know, maybe some of you guys need to walk outside of the schools and see what kind of conditions our kids are playing in. I mean, a grass field's going to look great the first year. The second or third year, because we can't play on it for the first year. So, yeah, the second year it's going to be great. Now we got to seed it 4 times a year. So what are we going to do? We're going to have bare patches anyway that seeds are not going to take because the kids are going to keep playing on it. I think last year, the outfield of the soccer field, baseball field at the high school was seeded 2 hours before a game. So we're talking
Mr.
about
Stay,
scheduling here.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead, I got my 3 minutes?
You got your 3.
All right, cool.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Ms. Lako. Yeah.
Place at the same time, right? Good evening. I just have a few questions. The first question was, during the presentations, there was discussion about the seating going from 2 to 4 times a year. Was that included in the cost structure for the new fields, the new grass fields? And if it wasn't, where is that money being allocated from? And then the second part of that question is bringing in the outside contractor. Was that included in the cost of the budget for the new fields as well as the new equipment that you said could only be used on the one field? Was that money considered in the budget for the bond, or where is that being allocated from? That's my first question.
Yeah, it's in the operations budget with that, and yeah, the outside and the outside services and the seeds and all of that, all of those different items are part of the operations budget.
So it was included in the past budget that was was done for this current school year, or was it included in the bond budget?
If you go back historically and you look at the, I could point out the line. If you want to give me a call tomorrow, I can point out where it is. We have been increasing as we're assuming some of these new activities on the field. So this code has been increased at different intervals over the last several years.
So both of those new, all 3 of those new charges were considered and allocated for the current school year?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then the second question that I had was around what my husband had mentioned with the cork fields. We have a competitive athlete we've played on well over 50 fields across the U.S. Cork was one of the ones that we've seen where it was good on the impact for the athlete. It was good as far as the health and safety concerns. It's one of the things that they touted. But my question is, we've heard from an expert, and I'm a little dismayed in the presentation of the expert not having enough factual-based evidence for what he presented during the conversation. I'd like to hear more about the actual data and the statistics rather than the opinion of really both sides of the story. But for the data and the statistics that you're reviewing on the different types of subsurface applications for a synthetic field, are you reviewing MSDS or material safety data sheets? Are you looking at the actual temperature ranges? Because there is data around the safe temperature ranges. And believe me, we've played when it's 112 degrees in Florida and 115 degrees in Delaware in July. So, you know, we're sensitive to that heat and what it does to not only to the impact that an athlete has while they're running, but also heat exhaustion and all of the other health implications that go along with it. We've played on fields where it wasn't nearly 80 degrees above what it should be. We've played on fields where, yes, it's hot, but it's hot outside. So ambient temperature and all the other things that go into determining the best subsurface configuration is really something I'd like, if we're going to go forward. And I understand, Dr. Card, that you do have to present the third phase of your budget because of what we've committed to already. But how about doing the next stage of what it could look like, the cost impact, the safety impact, the study, talking to other districts, talk to Farmingdale and see what they just did, or one of the other surrounding districts where they have recently implemented a sustainable community environment where, they've had to have, from a community perspective, done all of these questions that we're asking. So I don't know the best way to do that, but just things for us to think about.
All right, thank you. And I know one of the things that if we do decide going to turf, as I mentioned earlier, that's the next level conversation of which field are we going with if we do go with turf.
But I would challenge you to do it even before you make the decision, so that at least you have the fact-based evidence to say, here's what our peers, where our kids are playing, here's what everybody else has done already. Let's not redo what everybody's done. Let's take it and say, here's all the information, and you put them side by side, and then let's make a decision if we go forward or not.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Shea. There you are.
Good evening. I know it's late and I'll be really short. We're all talking about the fields. Everything is, turf, grass. Unfortunately, my son will never benefit from it being he only has one more football season. But there's something that no one's talking about is our bleachers. They're horrendous. Our visitors have beautiful new bleachers. Us, we're literally the wood of the steps is cracking. We're falling. We're hurting ourselves. It's, I almost killed myself at the last home game. It's very dangerous, and I think that our bleachers is something that can be ratified without talking about fields and everything. This is for the safety of our visitors, of our family members that come and watch our games, us, and also our students that do come and watch our games. So that's question one. Question two, I commended the board for cutting down on mail. For the high school, we all got emailed schedules. I was like, wow, you know how much money that just saved the district? And then 2 days later, I got a letter from Mr. Howard saying Andrew's locker number is number whatever it is. I'm like, okay, here, so now you're sending out letters for things that easily could have been emailed. And I'd also like to know if the board has considered possibly, as much as I love it, as much as I love seeing my son and my son's friends in the calendar, going to a computer-based calendar where you're not spending that type of money printing them out.
One of the reasons why we publish a calendar is because while you may want to use a computer base, we still have members of the community who are not on computer systems, who we need to make sure that we're reaching out to because they are still members of the community who participate in our budget vote. And so while paper-based is something that we're trying to phase out, we do recognize that there are segments of our community that have not made that transition yet. Be reminded that prior to me coming here, some of my predecessors were not using email.
No.
So we're...
know.
We know. That was a joke. So it's a transition. And you asked a question about bleachers that we should respond to. I think bleachers as well as the concession stand are in phase 3 of the bond for repair. So the issue that you brought up about the bleachers at East Meadow High School will be addressed in phase 3 of the bond.
And that's something.
Next,
I was just going to say also, I know that last board meeting, Pete had brought up, or Kristen had brought up, the Woodland bleachers. I know that those were fixed. So if you're seeing something, I would say communicate it, let us know.
Right, well, that's...
Because as soon as you guys brought it up, somebody was sent out there.
We shouldn't be doing this.
Right, I'm talking about the basic, our regular home field bleachers. That's something, and phase 3 is something, hopefully, that this is going to be repaired before the next outdoor season.
Probably not until the summer.
Well, is there a possibility that our facilities people can just do a basic walkthrough and see what needs to be repaired, quote-unquote, repaired? Okay, simple, safe enough. Thank you.
And unless anyone else has anything further, we're going to go to board member announcements. So Dr. Luce, why don't you start?
Okay. I just wanted to touch briefly as possible, sorry folks, on the parent-teacher conference procedures, or lack thereof. I said this when my child was in Woodland. I'm amazed that it wasn't fixed for him to go into high school. The system by which the parent-teacher conference is run is so inefficient, and it doesn't allow the parents to get to all of their children's teachers in the 2.5 hours of time that were allotted, A, and B, doesn't allow the teachers to properly prepare. So if, let's say, for instance, my kid had, I'm allotted 5 minutes per teacher. That teacher is spending the first 60 seconds digging through their pile of paperwork or looking in the computer to find, or when the internet was working, to find my son's paperwork. If we were to use a system such as Sign Up Genius, okay, that connects to the parent portal, it's a very easy system to use. It allows us to more effectively make the rounds to our children's teachers. It allows the teachers to much more effectively prepare for the conferences. So I think that's something that we really need to look into.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Dr. Casamento and I have engaged as secondary principals in conversations around some type of sign-up system. We have one of our middle school principals and possibly the second one who will consider doing a pilot around that system. We have Joanne Lacarata who has explored some of the systems that are available. However, I need to just mention one caveat, because I was in a school district where we did have that system, and while it's more efficient and it provides timeframes for parents, one of the things or messages that we'll need to convey, particularly at the secondary level, is that perhaps you might not need to see all of the teachers for parent-teacher conferences, because that becomes the challenge, right? When you're on 5-minute schedules or 5-minute timeframes, depending upon the location of the teacher, it becomes challenging. In the middle schools, it's usually more efficient because of teaming. Because you could schedule, one of the scheduling tools is you could schedule around a team where all 5 teachers or 4 teachers are present. So these are things that we have been talking about. That's why I'm able to articulate to this level. But you're correct. I think that we've heard from enough parents that this is definitely something we should be looking at. So thank you very much for being keyed in on it.
I would just like to add to that very briefly. I know the hour is late. So the last 2 schools in which I've worked have used this SchoolSoft program, excuse me, to do signups for parent-teacher conferences. As soon as we went to that, it became immediately much more organized, and the parents and teachers everybody was happier. We also, for instance, we have 5-minute time slots in my building right now. Generally, I work in a smaller school, so people are able to see more teachers, but that being said, we send home mail to parents saying, yes, you have 5-minute time slots, but perhaps you should schedule a parent-teacher conference at another time with a teacher if you have any real issues in that class. So we try to encourage the idea that, yeah, you can absolutely go meet a teacher for 5 minutes and get a general idea, but your parent-teacher conference in November shouldn't be the first time that a teacher and a parent are communicating about an issue going on in a classroom with a student. So, and that really is on both of them. So I can't imagine being a classroom teacher and then not reaching out to a parent of a student with any kind of real issue in class. I mean, that's something that should happen in September, October, the late. I mean, you're really on top of things as a teacher. But as a parent, you should also be on top of your kids' schoolwork, knowing that maybe that's a teacher I should talk to earlier than parent-teacher conferences. So I do find that the SchoolSoft system in my district works well. It does alleviate a lot of headaches. There's no lines. It's not like Disney World outside the classrooms. And I would advocate going for that. And I know we have principals who are, okay, some principal says yes, some principal says, we're not here to micromanage the schools. That's, Dr. Card's job, but I would say that, I would say that if we have this, in one building, honestly, I think all of our buildings should have it. We shouldn't just let principals say, I don't feel like doing a system where people sign up, I'll just let it happen. But I think that's something that maybe we should really push on principals. Hate to say it, but, we can't have one school having an efficient system and another school not. So those are just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, doctors. Any other board member announcements? Our next board meeting will be December 4th, so I want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. We are going to go into executive session, but we will not be coming out for any other public purpose. So while you're welcome to stay here and join us afterwards, you will be sitting here alone. And with that, would someone like to make a motion to go into executive session to seek advice from bond counsel and discuss the employment history of particular individuals? Dr. Luce, second Ms. Tell, all in favor? Have a good night.
Good night.